Your next history fair due date is your works cited draft number 2, and I'm going to have feedback to you by, I think I said the end of this week, which like we're there, but at least by Sunday or Monday for you to have. But that doesn't stop you from continuing your research. So your works cited draft number 2, you're going to add 5 more documents to that document you already created in Word. Everybody with me? Okay. So you're going to do 5 more. So by the end of next week, you have now completed half of the minimum required sources for your project. Everybody with me? Because what's your minimum required source number? How many sources are you minimum are you required to have for history fair? 16. Okay. So by next Friday, you're going to have 8 done because you already have 3 for draft number 1, right? And now you're just adding 5 more to that. I have in your notebooks, you now have a section that says works cited draft number 2, 5 additional resources with your due dates, with the instructions on what to do again. Okay. So when you are turning in draft number 2, you're doing the same thing you did for draft number 1. This time you didn't have to type the instructions because they should be there. Are they there? Okay. This next thing I really want you to think about is the page called Helpful Tools and Category Rules. Oops. It's not supposed to rhyme, but it does. Helpful tool, it's not meant to rhyme. Remember, this lays out the different types of projects that you can do. And this lays out the rules for those. If you have not decided which type of project you're creating, now's the time to decide. Okay. And it's okay if you haven't up until this point, but you really need to nail that down. If you're like, okay, I want to do a website, but I have no idea what to do. That's okay, because guess what you can do in Canvas now? You can't make it in Canvas, but you can go to Canvas. And I have put a page in the history fair module of project examples. So click on project examples, and I have like specific ones here that I've just kind of picked for you to look at. But if you just click on this first link right here, it'll take you to nhd.org, straight to project examples, and you can go all the way back to 2015. But all of these we're not doing exhibits, but all of these types of projects, these are the winning projects from those years. So if you're like, what does a really good project, what does an A project look like? This is what an A project looks like. Does that make sense? So if you want to do a documentary, you can sit and watch the documentary and be like, oh, okay, I can do that. If you want to do a historical paper, who's doing a paper? Okay, go and read this first place paper, right? It says junior paper. This was done by a middle schooler. Okay, so look at the paper, look how it's set up. If you're doing a website, which I think a lot of you are probably doing websites, you're using Web Central or NHD Web Central is what you're using, okay? And use this website as a template for you. Like, what does a website that has an A grade, what does it have on it, okay? And you can essentially model your project like this. Does that make sense? So if you're at the point and you know what kind of project you're doing, but you're like, no clue how to start, where to start, look at these examples. Does that make sense to everybody? There are some rules that I do want to point out, especially for documentaries. They can only be 10 minutes long. Okay, that's the time limit. A good one is probably going to be between 8 and 10 minutes. Historical papers, you have a word minimum and a word maximum. Minimum 1,500 of your own words to 2,500 of your own words. It could be more than that, but what doesn't count against your word count are like quotes and citations. Does that make sense? So if you're quoting a book or an interview or something like that, whatever quote you use doesn't count against your word count. Same for websites, okay? So same for websites. If you go down, remember you're using NHD Web Central, except the word count here is 1,200 of your own words. It's 1,200, not 12,000. I just want to be clear with that. And some people are like, 12,000 words? No. 1,200 of your own words, but what doesn't count against that word count? Quotes and citations. Everybody with me? Okay, there are specific rules, like your site can't be more than 100 megabytes of file space. You don't have to worry about that because Web Central doesn't let you go over like the allotted like space. Does that make sense? So like you don't really have to worry about that specifically. So again, if you're like, I don't really know what to do, I'm struggling with where to start, look at those project examples. Okay, go here, watch those documentaries, click through those websites, all of those things. Does anybody have any questions on that?
Where do you go to look at the examples?
So in Canvas, let me go back. In your history fair module, project examples. And then I've put your next due date there, so that'll be on your calendar as well. See good? Any questions? Okay, so you need to be getting to this point where you're starting to at least plan out what your project's going to look like. Yes? Okay. And if you're like, I don't really know where to take my research, looking at those project examples will also help. I'm also today, when class is over, I'm going to go upload the rubrics for each of the projects so you can look at those and know what you're supposed to have in your project. Remember when we had the rubric for the Jamestown essay, right? And a lot of you use that, which means you got a good grade. Use the rubric that I upload. And I'll put another page here that says project rubrics. Okay, good. Okay, so my